There still seems to be confusion, so let's break down the difference between the National Department of Education and individual state departments of education, because the National DOE and state DOEs are responsible for very different things. The U.S. Department of Education is in charge of the concept of education for the whole country. It gives money to schools to help them run, collects data on school performance, sets broad rules that states must follow, and ensures fairness for all students, particularly those with disabilities. Before the DOE existed, there was no federal requirement guaranteeing that students with disabilities, whether physical or learning related, had the right to attend public school. To this day, there is no requirement that private schools accept these students either. The DOE changed that for public schools by enforcing laws that protect these students and ensure that they receive the support they need to succeed. On the other hand, the State Department of Education controls the learning for each individual state. It decides what kids learn, like math, science, and history, creates and administers state tests, sets the school calendar, and distributes money to local schools. The key difference is that the national DOE sets nationwide policies and provides funding, while the state DOE handles day-to-day decisions for its schools. When it comes to testing scores, the National Department of Education does not control them. It sets broad guidelines, like requiring states to test students, but it's the state DOE that decides what is tested, how often, and how results are used. Testing scores are meant to reflect how well students are learning the material each state decides is important. If the national DOE were eliminated, states would have unchecked power over their results. There would be no nationwide standard of measurement of the data collected. For example, one state might have really tough tests and high standards for their students to meet, while another might make tests easier to make their schools look better, even though they're falling significantly behind other states. If the national DOE were eliminated, state DOEs would still exist, but they would face big challenges. Moving federal funding to a new department might seem like a solution, but it would lack the national DOE's expertise on the subject, potentially leading to inefficiencies, delays, and unfair distributions of funds. Without the national DOE's oversight, there'd be less accountability, and schools might face inconsistent funding, making it harder to plan programs or even hire teachers. States could potentially lose federal funding for critical programs like special education, school lunches, and support for low-income students because of this. To fill this gap, states will most likely raise property taxes. Some are estimating this number might be at about 20%. But this could obviously burden taxpayers and still fall short, especially in poorer states. Policies like IEPs, which ensure equal opportunities for students with disabilities, might also be neglected without a national standard of what is appropriate. There is no logical reason why a student in New Jersey should receive accommodations differently than one in Mississippi. It simply doesn't make sense.